Everyone wants to know how much they can make if they buy a franchise. And for franchisors, from a regulatory and franchise sales standpoint, there are very few things more important than Item 19 financial performance representations. Franchising is regulated, and federal law and state law define what financial performance representations are, and they broadly define them. So financial performance representation is any statement that you make as a franchisor. It could be a verbal statement, it could be in writing, it could be a private email, or it could be in an advertisement. Any statement, public, private, oral, in writing, that communicates financial information about your franchise system. That communicates historical information or projected information about the sales, profits, income of the franchise business. So information about what are the gross sales or what is the gross profit or profitability of your current locations, your company-owned outlets or your franchise outlets. Those are financial performance representations. If the information is based on historical data, your sales over the past 2 or 3 years, or projected data, what you believe sales would be in the future, those are all financial performance representations. So in the franchise world, in the sales process, when a prospective franchisee asks, how much can I make, or how much do your locations make, that triggers Item 19 disclosures, and you can't answer the question. The only way you could provide that information is to refer a prospective franchisee or a franchise broker to Item 19 of your FDD, and within that Item 19, that's where you need to include the data. So typical Item 19 financial performance representations, well, if you're a new franchisor and you don't have franchisees, that's going to include historical data about your existing, what we call company-owned outlets. So for example, what were your gross sales, cost of goods sold, gross profit for your company-owned outlets for the, say, prior 2 years? That would be a typical financial performance representation that you include in your FDD. That is the only financial information that you could give to franchisee candidates or communicate to them. Now, if you're an existing franchisor and you have corporate-owned outlets and franchise outlets, the rule is that you need to include information about both. You need to include information about your company-owned outlets, and you need to include information about your franchise outlets. So for example, if you have franchisees, and let's say they've been open for a year, you can't just include company-owned outlet data. You need to include franchisee outlet data. But you can include more detail about your company-owned outlets. And that's something you should discuss with your franchise lawyer. So existing franchisors, your financial performance rep, well, that would be information about gross sales, profitability of your company-owned outlets. Maybe for those company-owned outlets, you want to provide more detail, such as gross sales, less cost of goods sold, come up with a gross profit number, ordinary expenses, and maybe come up with and disclose an EBITDA cash flow data. For your franchise outlets, depending on how big your system is, you may be able to consolidate the data, include average gross sales, average cost of goods sold. But the key here is a financial performance representation is any information you communicate about the potential financial performance of a franchise business, whether it's historical data, projected data, whether it's in writing or verbally, right? A lot of franchisors will get in trouble when a salesperson will send an email to a prospective franchisee or to a franchise broker that does qualify as a franchise salesperson. And they provide, for example, maybe an Excel spreadsheet about financial numbers that company-owned outlets achieved, or sometimes we see they'll give pro forma data or a pro forma worksheet that supposedly a franchisee could fill in. Where franchisees get in trouble there is sometimes franchisees claim that the salespeople verbally give them the sales number to include or provide cost data on a percentage basis that allows franchisees to back into and calculate potential sales. So financial performance representations, they're critical to the franchise sales process. If you're a new franchisor, 9 out of 10 times, it's going to be critical that you have them in your FDD. Otherwise, you're going to be at a competitive disadvantage. And for existing franchise systems, with very few exceptions, you should have item 19 financial performance data. And now this video, right? We're in 2021, just went through 2020 COVID pandemic. It's even more important to have detailed data in your item 19. For example, what were your gross sales in 2019? What were the gross sales in 2020 during the pandemic, right? How did the pandemic influence your operations? How did the pandemic influence your sales numbers, right? And now as we're in 2021, what does that recovery and hopefully a good recovery look like? And some businesses even have done better in 2020. So your item 19, it's a critical part of your franchise sales process. Brokers are going to be looking for it. It's going to help franchisees answer the question, what they can expect, at least with gross sales, and potential ROI on their franchise investment.